Well, good morning. It's good to be here with you this morning. This is exciting.
Ephraim was over in Africa with Gospel Express, and he had some really good experiences over there. So we're going to show some pictures as he's preaching and sharing what he experienced.
Should I do that first, Aaron, and then have a little message, or you want me to do message first? Either way works. I might do the message first. Well, the Lord has really been working on me lately, or the last few months has been, what is the gospel of the kingdom? And I really think it plays into some of the things that were shared this morning. You can just turn it off, or just, okay. So what the Lord has really been showing me has been in Daniel. I just want to read a little bit in Daniel when Nebuchadnezzar had the dream. And so I want to start in Daniel 2, verse 26, to lay a little bit of a foundation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, Art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have seen, and the interpretation thereof? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret which the king hath demanded cannot the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, the soothsayers show unto the king. But there is a God in heaven that revealeth secrets, and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, thy thoughts came into thy mind upon thy bed, what should come to pass hereafter, and he that revealeth secrets maketh known to thee what shall come to pass. But as for me, this secret is not revealed to me for any wisdom that I have more than any living, but for their sakes that shall make known the interpretation to the king, and that thou mightest know the thoughts of thy heart. Thou, O king, sawest and beheld a great image. This great image, whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image head was of fine gold, his breast and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, his legs of iron, his feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them to pieces. Then was the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, and the gold broken to pieces together, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors, and the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled the whole earth. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thy hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall rise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces, and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, forasmuch as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And this is what I wanted to get to the next verse. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. So what we see is the kingdoms of that time, from Nebuchadnezzar leading up to Christ, they were always taken over the kingdom before, and they would destroy it. But they became weaker and weaker. And now he's prophesied that in the days of those kings, which was in the days of Jesus, God is going to set up a kingdom that shall never be destroyed. And that's what excites me, because we're a part of that kingdom right now. Amen. And then in Matthew 24, those of us that come from the Amish, we heard those scriptures preached a lot. We called them the end of Weltschriften. And it always brought like a fear to me when we heard those. And so Jesus is saying The disciples are wondering, when are these things coming? What are the signs? And so Jesus said, take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. How many times have we heard the end is, it's almost here because, of all these things. Then he said, I'll tell you when the end shall come. He said, this gospel of the kingdom. Remember what Daniel said? There's this kingdom that's going to be established. And now Jesus says this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations. And all nations is not just America, Canada, Mexico. It's all people groups over the whole world. Has to be preached to every nation, and then shall the end come. And so what is this gospel of the kingdom that has to be preached? I think I heard this morning some wrestling, some questioning. What is this? And I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I know one thing. I have some ideas as well. Matthew 4, I'll just go a little bit with what Jesus was talking about, because he is our great example in these things. Matthew 4, verse 23. And Jesus went about all Galilee, teaching in the synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing all manner of sickness and all manner of disease among the people. So he was preaching the gospel and he was healing. Is that a part of the kingdom, the gospel of the kingdom? Then Matthew 9, verse 35, same thing. Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues and preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. So we're seeing a pattern here. And so I'd just like to share with you what we walked through, what we witnessed when we were in Africa, and also some of the testimonies that were shared with us by men that have walked in some of the questions that some of you are wrestling with here this morning, and what their testimony is in that. I didn't experience that, but I talked with a man that did. He personally walked through some of these things. And just to look at his life, what he shared of his personal walk with Jesus, his personal walk with the people in that area. These things don't just happen just because. There's foundations, there's things that are put in place. And so we can just kind of quickly go through the slides. I almost feel like they take away from what I really want to get to, but it just gives you an idea, a little bit of the culture and what we saw there and some of the poverty. And so I'll just go through that a little bit. And as I go, it can be a reminder too of some of the things that we experienced there. So this is a picture of Mark, and he has a whole suitcase full of dolls there, little baby dolls that we gave out to the schools, like to the schoolgirls. It was such a blessing for them to receive something. That's one thing I noticed with Nelson. Wherever we went, whoever we ministered to, he was always giving something to the people. He always offered them something. So go ahead. This is just, I did construction, so this was amazing to me how they build over there. It's just incredible with the little bit of tools and materials they have, what they can actually do. This is just one of the lighter moments. That's my wife, and Alice on the right here, she was our interpreter. She did a lot of interpreting for us. By the way, it was 90 degrees out. Those watermelons were at least that warm. And we had stopped for something to eat, and there was a little boy, he was probably 12 years old, came walking down the road with a bucket of watermelons. And so we bought some of them, and before that boy left us, he was a believer. I mean, it was just the Spirit of God was moving over there. It was incredible. Go ahead. This broke my heart. This shelter was a home to 2 families. And we saw this when we were driving down the road. The first day we were in ministry, it wasn't the first day we were there. The first day we were preparing with all the, like you saw, the suitcases there. So we were going out to Masinde prison. It was about a 4-hour drive. And as we were driving along, I said, I really would like to see the inside of somebody's home that actually lives here. And soon we started seeing these little huts out in the fields. And as we're driving, we saw a group of children. And so Nelson said, let's stop and give these children some lollipops, or some of them I don't even think had clothes on. He's like, let's give them some clothes. So we stopped, and the children just came running. I don't know if you can visualize the culture over there, but there's such a, like, white man is Mazunga, and so it's like you stand out like a sore thumb over there. It's just everyone else is dark. And so these children just came running, and I asked one of them, can we see your house? And so there was a little bit of hesitation, but soon our interpreter met with, I think it was one of the women that lived there, and she said, yeah, you can come and look at it. And I'm not even going to show you the picture of the inside because they had children in there without clothes, and I just don't want to go there. But literally, 2 families were living in there. They were Christians. They were believers. And I think what happened is they were refugees from another part of Uganda, and I believe they just put up a temporary shelter as the men went out and did some farming there to try to create an income. But literally, I had to cry when I saw this. They were living in there. Children were running around with no clothes on. And then we had 2 vans, and we had a bunch of clothes along. And the ladies actually were able to dress some of the children and give some clothes to the moms. And you talk about moms just overjoyed to get a garment or 2 of clothing. They were literally running back to their home, and they were just overjoyed. And it affected me. Like, here in America, we have so much, and yet we are so unthankful so many times. So I wanted to show you that. This is Pancho and his wife and their 11-year-old daughter. I have a testimony to share with them that we received from Africa about them later. They're just a normal family like any of you here. They came out of the old colony Mennonites, we call the Russian Mennonites, just like 2 years ago. And God used them so mightily in Africa, it is unbelievable. And yet it's just the Spirit of God and just rolling with it. Go ahead. This is 2 of the people. We were in these people's church 3 weeks ago. These are just 2 of the ladies there with my wife. And I just had a thing. It's amazing. Dave was sharing about culture and what we come out of. And it's amazing how much that still affects us even today. We were worshiping with them in their church. And I mean to tell you, there was nobody standing still in worship. There was serious motion. There was dancing. People were moving. There was an incredible outworking of just worshiping God. And it's so amazing coming back here. That affects us where we grew up. We don't worship the way they worship. We don't have to. I think God receives it either way. But it's just amazing how much our culture can affect us even though we're not technically a part of it anymore. Go ahead. Just keep going. I'm going to skip over this for now. This was at the equator, and they were just doing a demonstration of the way the water goes the opposite way from the northern and the southern hemisphere. So there was a little tour stop right along the equator there, and we just stopped and found out some interesting stuff in that way. Go ahead. This is just a picture of, we called it outdoor Walmart. They had all these shops. It was like a drive-through Walmart. You could just drive through all the shops. And here you got a little motorcycle repair shop right, with the meat market there. And it's like 90 degrees. Go ahead. This was one of the schools we were at. It's like a community school sponsored by a church. And we were working with the church leaders over there, so they took us to their schools that they're working with. These are the young people that accepted Christ or were Christians at this school. And what they did, there might have been 300 or 400 of them. And so Nelson would preach a gospel message to them with the little bit of time he had. And these were the ones that accepted Christ. And what they did, they actually split them up. They said, all the born-agains over here, and all the rest over there. And they voluntarily would come over here. Then they would give them all a Bible. And we had English Bibles and Ugandan Bibles, so they got whatever they preferred. And it was just such a blessing to see. These are high schoolers, and there are Muslims with them. There's actually Muslims go to their Christian schools because they appreciate the good teaching they get. And they get to hear the gospel, and they get a Bible. So go ahead. This was at another school we did later that day. I took a video of it because I couldn't get it all in one picture. Apparently the sound's not on, but that's good. He's preaching another language anyway. But there were about 600 to 700 students here, high school students. And they were just all standing there quietly listening to the Word of God being preached. And we got a report later. I think they said 200 of these received Christ that day. And here again, they separated them out. We gave all the new believers Bibles, and the rest of them we gave lollipops. But just incredible seeing that size of a crowd just intently listening to the gospel. And later one of the teachers came to one of our team members and she said, I want to receive Christ. And she also gave her life to the Lord. The hunger was so intense. The first day we were out of prison, we weren't allowed to take our cameras in, so I didn't have pictures. There were 1,200 men and 200 women all sitting out in the sun. There were a few that had shade. The hot 90-degree sun. And at the end of the service, they estimated about 500 of them gave their life to the Lord. Just incredible, incredible hunger. It's like here you try to lead one person to the Lord, it takes you years sometimes. And over there, they're just so open, they just receive it. So go ahead. This is a picture. These people were bringing water back to their homes. In these outside villages where you're not in the city, they don't have water. This is where they get their water. They have like a village pump somewhere or else a creek. And they take their 20-liter containers and they'll take them there and bring them home. You see little 6-year-olds dragging, they look like they're 6, they might be 8, dragging 2 of them down the road, just to get it back to their home. And you can imagine, here we see grass. For the most part over there, it's either dust, dirt, or if it rains, it turns into mud. And they are a very dirty people. They just have no means to really clean themselves up. So this is one way they do it. Go ahead. Does this play? You can't get the sound on here, can you? It's okay if you can't. But anyway, they're singing a song here. And this is a little one-room school we visited. And so now they're doing the song. Just gives you a little bit of an idea how they operate over there. And that's kind of why I put it on, just to show that. It's okay if it's not on. You can see what they're doing. They just move. I mean, they just don't hold still for long. So these are the school students. They did a little program for us. That yellow bag you see there, the first guy came in with it on his shoulder, and they're referring to being heavy laden. Lay down your burden, and they put it off, and then they had other things they were doing there. So you can go ahead. So this is our first medical clinic we did. This is our church building, by the way. The interesting thing over there, they'll build buildings with sticks and stones, but they have sound systems. Every single one of them over there got a sound system to mean it. I mean, they got speakers like this in that building. And they got, the boards and stuff that are like this big, to control the sound. And those people worship. I mean to tell you, they worship. And so this is a medical clinic. We moved them inside because it was raining. And personally, I struggled a little bit with giving all these people all this medicine. But, I'm like, that's the way that Nelson does it. I'm just going to roll with it. We were there because we believe God told us to go. We didn't doubt it. And we decided we're going to roll with what's going on over there. And we're going to see what the Lord does. And when we got there, and you see literally 300-400 adults plus hundreds of children around there, it just touches your heart. And outside they had their school, and it's literally buildings. We would call them not even fit for the pig pen. Buildings where they're doing school, no desks. They're sitting on the floor. It's dirt floors. They might have some kind of a bamboo rug, but that's about it. And so this was just a shot of the inside of the clinic. So you can go on. So this was the outside. My wife and I and some of the other team were doing ministry there with the children. And that's a challenge. It's an ever-evolving, ever-moving. They're not like here. They all want to be in the front. They don't want to be in the back. They just keep coming from the front to the back, and they want to get close. And we're just telling them stories and stuff like that. On the buildings in the back, that's their schoolrooms. They're just open buildings, and they have a number of different teachers there. I think some of the teachers were actually working with us there to help kind of manage them. But that's where they're doing their school, inside there. Go ahead. And this is the same place. I just took a video of it. You can go on. Here's my wife with some of the local women there that they received blankets. I think these may not even have received medicine. There were so many people we could not see them all in one day. And some of these people had never seen a doctor before. A lot of cases of malaria, headaches, stomach aches, and that's what they wanted prayer for then. Go ahead. Just another shot. We were there in the prayer tent. My wife and I, along with a few of the others, spent most of the day at that clinic in the prayer tent. So they would all get numbers when they came to the clinic, so that there was some decency and order in seeing them. And then they'd go through the medical clinic. They'd come outside. We had a little tent set up, and we'd pray for them. And I just want to read a little. We got an email from the pastor that was oversight of this, and I just want to read give you a little bit of what he said. He said, "You have planted a tree of joy in us, in our community, and its roots are going deeper and deeper. I'm learning a new lesson. Joyful hearts genuinely worship and praise God. And during true and genuine praise and worship, God touches lives. We experienced wonderful presence of God last Sunday because of the joy of your ministry last Tuesday." So he's talking about what happened on Sunday because of the ministry Tuesday. This was going on Tuesday. "You have taught us how to love. Your generosity has deeply spoken to us. Your ministry is transforming our lives and the whole community. Thank you so much for trusting us to serve God's people through us." And then they had a council meeting, and they went over what actually happened. "Services rendered to our community on 26 March 2019. Medical treatment, giving out Bibles, giving out blankets, giving out mosquito nets, preaching spirit-filled, Bible-based, and Christ-centered message, giving out children play materials, your humility and obedience to God to serve together with us in this primitive, remote, and hard-to-reach village. Outcomes of your mission: restored hope for the hopeless. 27 people accepted Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. 9 of them fellowshiped with us last Sunday. We have already received more than 96 testimonies of those that have been healed. Even unbelievers call our church their church. They feel the church cares for their lives, and this has made it easy for us to witness Christ." Amazing. That is their words coming back. Another shot of the prayer tent. The language was such a problem, such a barrier. Most of them didn't speak English in this village. So the black guy there, he was interpreting for us a lot. And so many times we would ask them where it hurts, and they would say, and so we just pray for that, command it to go. Then we'd ask them if anything happened. And I would say 40-50% of them said, pain's gone, before they left there. Go ahead. This man was a Muslim man coming into the clinic. The church there had been praying for them 2 years, praying for him. His wife actually comes to that church. This day, he gave his life to the Lord. And this is just a shot of me handing him a Bible. But I came away from Africa realizing the answer to the Muslim question is not more wars or more AK-47s. It is a simple gospel: lead them to the Lord. So it was actually the evening before this clinic. I got to share that story. It was so far away from our home base, we went to another town and stayed there for 2 nights. Shatera, it was called. It was south of the equator. Where we were staying was north of the equator. So I kind of got this idea this whole ministry thing works better on the southern hemisphere. So we were in Shatera, and we were tired. We were dead tired. We got back there like, I don't know, it was late till we ate supper. It was probably 10 o'clock. And some of the team wanted to go out and witness on the streets. And I don't know if any of you can visualize what it looks like over there, but it's like these. There was a highway here. It was like a big enough town to connect it from town to town, so it was a highway, just like Hollander Road. It's a highway, but it was paved. And so you'll have these houses or shops like 30 foot off the road, and then in between you'll have these stands where they sell food. And that's kind of how they live over there. It's just day by day. My wife did not want to go out. She was tired, and she said, I'm tired, I want to go to bed. And she said if she didn't want me to go out, if she didn't go out, because she didn't want to be alone in her room. And so I kept kind of begging her to go. And finally she said, if we only go for half an hour, I'll go with you. And so we went with Furman. Some of you guys know Furman. And a couple others of the team went along. And we split up into 2 teams. So there might have been 10 or 12 people, but we split up. So we went walking from here, maybe out to Hollander Road. We get to the first shops. And there's just, I don't know, over there, we were just so free, so open. And so we just walked up to this first stand. The guy was making chicken. And it was a young guy, probably in his mid-20s. I just go to him. And I'm like, do you know Jesus? I mean, it's not beating around the bush. It's just like right to the point. And he's like, oh, no, I'm Muslim. Like, kind of arrogant, And my heart just kind of sank. I'm like, oh, no, not this again. Because we've done this a lot in America here, street ministry like that. And it's just been like block wall after block wall. You just couldn't get through it. People would come close, conviction would come, but then, nah, not now. I don't want to accept Christ. So I just said to him, through the interpreter, through Alice, which you saw there with the watermelon picture, I said, sir, is your prophet dead or alive? And he thinks a little bit, and he goes, he's dead. So I said, so who's going to intercede for you when you come before God? And he thinks a little bit, and he goes, I don't know. Then I said, are you okay with that? And he goes, no, I'm not. Tell me more. And you could kind of see the Spirit of God was starting to really work. There were hecklers there. I mean, they were mocking him for listening to us. And it was kind of intense for a while, like the spiritual stuff that was going on. And so the interpreter told the hecklers, just back off, leave us alone. We're not pushing anything on anybody. If you don't want to hear it, just leave. And so they kind of went back in the background, faded away. And this guy's trying to make his chicken all the time I'm talking to him. He's moving the chicken around. And finally, the conversation's getting too intense. And he gets somebody else to finish his chicken. And now he's all in. And so I just explained the gospel, short version gospel, a little bit Old Testament. Tried to bring out how he needs to see that he's a sinner. And if he's a sinner, there has to be a payment for that sin in order for him to be with God. And so I explained to him the plan of salvation and all that. And soon my interpreter, so it would be the interpreter to him, sometimes him back. It was kind of it took a little time. Finally, the interpreter said he's ready. He wants to receive Jesus. And by now, he was just all mellowed down and just really humble and really sincere. And some of the hecklers had come back and were actually listening to our conversation, just really calm. And by the time we led him through the process of receiving Christ, Furman went back and got a Bible, and he had also handed out some tracts to some others. And by now there were 2 others standing here that were ready to hear the gospel. And another thing I wanted to bring out, the first question he asked me was, can I now share with others about Jesus? Just incredible. And I'm like, amen, brother, you're all in, go for it. And so we started ministering to the others, and he's back there reading his Bible with a flashlight. And so now we're ministering to the others, and more keep joining until we finally get through that we're ready to pray. There's a whole crowd around there. And so we're like, just all put your arms in. Whoever wants to receive Christ, put your hand in and we'll pray. I mean, it was just incredible. The Spirit of God was just there. It was just so amazing. And later when we shared it with the team, like the local bishops and pastors, they said, this is not normal. We are not used to seeing this over here. So praise God. Thank you for all the people that were praying. There was so much prayer went into this outreach from all over the world. Like people in Kenya were praying, Uganda, Canada, U.S., all over people were praying. And at the same time, if I would have listened to my wife and went back in our hotel room, we'd have missed it. But it was an incredible story of working with God. We did not have to make it happen. It just flowed. It was so easy when it was flowing. This is one of the leaders over there that was praying in the next, go ahead, it would be Wednesday's meeting. So this is a video, again, of we showed up at the clinic, and this is what we found soon after we got there. It was so big, I had to do it in a video so you can even capture it. And these people had never had anything like this in their village ever before. Here they're lining up to get a number. They make them get numbers because they do not wait respectfully in lines. They will always try to cut out. And that in the back there is their schoolrooms. The one on the left is their new schoolroom. The one on the right was their old schoolroom. And I also have a shot. Go ahead. This is the inside of that schoolroom, the new one. And this is where they do their school. And the man on the left there is one of the leaders over there. He's actually from Kenya. And he said he didn't have anything near this nice where he went to school. And I said, well, did you learn? Did you learn your stuff? And he said, yeah, I learned it. So I tested him. So what's 8 times 4? Well, that's 3, 2. So I said, what's 12 times 12? 144. So he had it. He knew it. It's not like you need a fancy schoolroom to learn. You just somehow need some other fundamental things. So he's a bishop today over many churches. Go ahead. Here's just a shot of my wife playing with the children. Lots of children at these clinics. Lots of needy people. Just amazing. But this, I got the picture of what the disciples faced with Jesus. There are so many children, and they're all craving and clamoring for attention. And I think I understand their frustration. Like, get out of here. Just get out so we can get to the real business. But Jesus loved them. And I get it. The way these people just showed up out of the woodwork. You have these villages, and they said this was a village, but all you could see is what you see in the background, trees and hills. But the people just came and came and came, mostly on foot. There was a few boaters back there, but mostly on foot. And there must have been 600 adults here, plus all the children. And there were no outhouses. It was basically the surrounding woods. It was just incredible. Go ahead. Here's a shot of my wife. She dressed this baby. This baby came to the clinic with no clothes, and that we saw that a lot. They just, I don't know why they do this. I guess they can't afford diapers or Pampers, and so they just wrap them around their body with a shawl, and that's just where they are without clothes. So they were able to bless a lot of moms with, dressing them up like that. Go ahead. Just a shot of the street. They're out. Their drive-through Walmart. Just the way they get their food there. Go ahead. Oh, here's the last school we were at. Just another shot of them singing a song and the way they just flow with the worship. Go ahead. Another shot of the school there. How many people know this guy? Oh, man, he loves the Lord. Oh, does he love the Lord. This guy's going to end up moving to Africa, I believe. He was so he just so loved it over there. He just couldn't get enough of it. Mm-hmm. Just another shot of the school there. This school, by the way, let me get the numbers. I think there's 400 students in this school, and they said 60% of them come from Muslim families. And they hear the gospel every day in this school. They are not abashed about it at all. They are very open with Jesus and the gospel. And I'm just so blessed. They are really making a difference in that community over there. So no doubt that some of those right there are Muslims, and they're singing Christian songs. Go ahead. This is just a shot of the team. There was a group of them from Canada. 6 or 7 of them were from Canada, and then the rest from U.S. And I have a testimony of that Canadian team. After we came home, they stayed a few more days, and so they had the worship. They had the church services, Sundays at church, like the preaching and stuff. And afterwards, they went out on the streets 2 by 2 with an interpreter, and they led 39 people to the Lord. Oh, wow. Incredible. That lady there, right there, Poncho's wife, she said if it was this easy back home in Canada, we would do nothing else but preach day and night on the streets, leading people to Christ. It was incredible. And just the night before we came home, I went with them out from the guest house. This is our guest house. And it really looks kind of good there, but pictures do no justice of the poverty over there. But anyway, we left there. It was at night. We were going to leave at midnight, and about 10 o'clock we went out to do some. My wife had a whole bag of clothes. She said, get rid of them. Leave them here. I don't want to take them home. And I met up. The team went out before I did, so I went out and met up with them, just walking on the streets. And again, that evening we led probably 8 or 10 people to the Lord. Just incredible. The one testimony, we were coming back all fired up. We were heading back. And there was this stand there with some 8 or 10 people there. And this is just how bold you get. It's like, you know Jesus, as you're walking by. And it's like, yeah, we know Jesus. And so, okay, good, great, we're heading back. And then another guy calls out to me about back where the girls are. He's like, hey, I want to talk with you. And he's like, I need to know about Jesus. And I'm like, you mean they know Jesus and they didn't tell you about him? He's like, no, they didn't tell me. And so I want to call him out. I'm like, come front here, because I was starting to go a little bit in fear. It was dark, and I sensed it might be a trap. I'm thinking they want me to go back there for who knows why. And he wouldn't come out. He's like, you come back. So Cornelius, one of the Canadians there, he's in the back, one of the tallest guys. He said, I'll go with you. So we went back, and he wanted to know about the gospel, and we started preaching to him. So he said, I'm Catholic, so I get some of this. But eventually, he said, my generation gets so hung up with the virgin birth. Can you explain that? We don't get this. How can this be? And so we explain it's by faith. I mean, you just have to believe it. It happened. And all of a sudden, the guy just goes like this. He's like, pray for me. I'm ready to receive Christ. I mean, it's just like one after the next. It's just like I have never experienced something like that. It's like the presence of God was just there and so strong. The people just accepted Christ. This guy here is Bishop Dixon, and I want to tell you a few stories about him yet in closing here. Well, I say closing. It might take a little time. We almost missed that guy's testimony. That's the last one, isn't it? So you can just leave it there. Just go back to the other one. No, the last one. Can you go back? Oh, yeah, you got it. The last evening, we were driving back to our guest house with this guy. We were sitting on the same seat. My wife said, so what's your story? And so he started telling us his story. This guy has started 48 churches, some of them here in America, actually. He ends up knowing all about the Amish and the Mennonites. He's been over here with Nelson in some of the communities. He knows all the religious strongholds and all of that. He currently oversees about 300 churches. And I said, how can that be? How can one man oversee that many churches? And he said, well, we just set it up in districts and we have other people doing it, but ultimately he's the apostolic figure if something comes up. And so we said, so what's your story? Where'd this all start? So Aaron, how much time do I have yet? I need to know how to condense this. Just 5-minute version. So anyway, he said he grew up in a conservative Orthodox setting where it wasn't a lot of freedom of the spirit, but he wasn't a wild person. He just did the right things, but for the wrong reasons. And then he visited some different church, and anyway, I think he went to Bible college over here in the U.S. somewhere, and he ended up getting, I don't know if he got converted there or if he just got set free. But anyway, he started out, he said, this goes back to what Jonas and Jesse and you guys were sharing. A number of years ago, I'm going to say the early 2000s or late 90s, this guy's wife died. She was sick for a while, and she got weaker and weaker, and finally one day he took her to the hospital. And at one point in the hospital, she said, I'm tired of living, I want to die. He goes, no, you don't say that. But she had said it. She said, I want to die. And within a few hours, she passed away. And he said, Lord, I will not accept this. This is not your will. It's not your will for my wife to die at this point. I'm not accepting it. He told the nurses, leave her alone. And it was him alone with his wife in that room. He said, for 3 hours, I was there before the Lord. And 3 hours later, she came back. She's still living. We met her over there. She is a godly lady. In that meantime, between then and now, she has written many Christian songs. And they're over there in Africa, that's a lot of the music that they use to worship now. Beautiful songs. And I didn't even ask him, but I'm wondering if some of that comes from some of the things that she saw. He didn't even elaborate on that. We didn't have enough of time. And but the point I want to bring out is some of the other stuff he told me that I came to realize that this kind of stuff, raising people from the dead, is not child's play. There's faith involved here. But I also believe there's an understanding of what God's will is and who we are. He did not accept it as God's will that his wife died. We live in a community that believes whatever happens is God's will. I don't think you guys believe that here, but a lot of people believe that. And therefore, if you're coming from that basis, then it's God's will that she died. Because why else would have she died? He recognized that it was because of Satan that she died. It was because of the words she said that she died. And he said, I'm not going to accept it. I will not accept that as your will, Lord. And he didn't go into a lot of details what he did in those 3 hours. But he did share a lot of other things. And one of the things I want to bring out is, he said when he was here in America preaching at some of the different churches, he was just amazed at the casualness of the people that get up to preach, how casual they take it. He said, if I preach at a church service, if I know that I'm preaching Sunday morning, he said, I do not sleep Saturday night. He said, I'm in prayer all night for that service. So I'm just laying a foundation of the life that this man lives and the reason that he walks in the authority that he walks. And I just want to bring a few of those other things out yet, if I can remember them. Can you help me out, Becky? What were some of the other things he said? Yeah, he spends a lot of time in prayer. Oh, another thing he said was, early on in his Christian walk, he was like, Jesus gave his life for the church, for us. Who today is going to give their life for the church? How many of you have ever even thought about that? Giving our life today for the church or for the people, even for the lost. Who's going to give their life? Well, Jesus did. Why should we? This man right here said, Lord, I'm willing. I will give my life. I will do whatever it takes. Me, I will do it. And I could tell that this man has laid down his life for the cause of the gospel. He hasn't died or been killed, but this man at the prayer meeting of the one I showed you there, the second clinic, medical clinic, the one where I had the video of it, this man and the other one that I had a picture of me earlier were in the prayer tent all day. That entire clinic, they were in that prayer tent praying for people. They never took a break that I saw. And I really wanted to listen in on how they were doing it, but it was another language. I just couldn't. But what I noticed was they weren't up there trying to. The day before, my wife and I and some of the others were in the prayer tent, and it seemed like we were working and we were praying, and we were in there for probably 4 hours just praying. But it almost seemed like it was a lot of effort to make it happen. And I don't know if it just seemed that way or if it was because of the language barrier or what it was. These guys were very relaxed. They would line up them, they'd line up 4, 5, 6 people in chairs, and then they'd kind of ask them what the issues are or whatever, and then they'd talk to them a little bit, preach a little bit, and then they'd pray with them. And later, not this guy, but the other guy told me that approximately 3/4 of the people coming through that tent gave their lives to the Lord. And so I wish I could remember more of the things he said. Another thing he said is he really doesn't sleep much at night at all. He said he kind of has a morning time of like dawn to 10 o'clock that he doesn't plan anything, and that's kind of his time of resting. And I'm like, why do you do that, rather than sleeping? And he's just like, somebody has to watch. It's a time when the demonic is more active at nighttime. And I'm just looking at him, and he just has this humble spirit. I almost missed this guy. We were with him a number of days while we were over there, but I almost missed having this interaction with him. And he really cared about people. He cared about me. He wanted to know our story. And I could readily share our story of the last number of years. And he spoke into that. So many truths, spoke right into it. Gave us wisdom, gave us direction. And he wanted our contact information. He said, the next time I come to America, I'm visiting you. And I'm just like, this man, I don't want to lift up a man above Jesus. Don't misunderstand me. What I'm trying to bring out is, there's this heart cry of, is raising people from the dead for our community? Is it for our generation, for our time? Is it for the church? What is our motive of doing it? I'm here to say this man raised his wife from the dead, or God raised her, however you want to say it. She's alive today. We saw her in flesh and blood. But he walks in a humble way. He walks in a way, I do not believe for 1 minute that he had a motive of trying to impress his people or his community. Another thing he said was, there's a lot of Catholic presence in their community, and the Catholics have really resisted them. Like, you guys are too liberal, you're too crazy, you're too wild in your worship and all this. And he's like, okay, whatever. If that's what you believe, you do your thing, we'll do ours. But he said, when you walk your walk, the day will come that they will have to come to you because they have no answers. He said what happened in the Catholic Church, they were losing all their youth. And so finally they got their worship music into the Catholic Church, which, by the way, his wife wrote, anointed music. And guess what happened? The demons started manifesting. And they had no clue what to do with it. They didn't know how to deal with it. Imagine for a little bit. The Catholic setting is a lot like the old order Amish setting is, as far as the whole religious mindset of it. If you would put this kind of worship music in an Amish church service, I'll bet too the demons would start manifesting. I mean, no offense against them, but that's what would happen. And they had no clue how to deal with it. So they had to call him. Hey, can you walk us through this? How do we deal with this stuff? They never saw demons manifesting. So his point was, you walk out your life with the Lord, and you walk where the Lord calls you, and the day will come when the religious setting is going to have to come to you guys for answers because they don't have them. But what I want to really hone in on is the life that this guy has with the Lord in his personal private time. The amount of time he spends with the Lord. That is what spoke to me. There is a foundation to these things that is more than just doing our thing. Then, oh, somebody died, let's go raise him from the dead. You hear my heart with that. And then how that all looks and plays out, I don't have, the solution. But I was encouraged and excited to hear his testimony on that. So that's really what I have at this point.
Thank you.